Welcome to the Previously Rockhounding podcast, where we explore the world of rockhounding and lapidary from the ye olden days of the 1970s and 80s through the lens of vintage issues of Rock and Gem magazine.
This is episode 4. We're looking at Rock and Gem magazine from December 1975. Now, this is December, so it is the Christmas issue, although the last issue had a lot of mentions of Christmas too, the November issue.
Yeah.
But this one, it has a nice red cover, so it's, I guess, Christmassy with the red. Some of the things that articles in here, we've got the $1 Million Rockhound Trail, gold crystals, fire agates, gift ideas, rockhound poinsettias, and basics of belt buckle design, and a lot more.
Yeah. It is a very Christmassy issue for being December. You'd think like they would...
Well, it said on there that it comes out at the beginning of the month.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously you get like the December issue at the end of November. But yeah, I would think it's a little late for Christmassy stuff.
Yeah, I think of like, because, I mean, in the world of rockhounding and lapidary, things take time. They take time, and buying gifts out of a magazine at the first week of December for Christmas, I don't think really cut it.
Or getting a project idea.
Yeah. I mean, most of my projects, they take weeks sometimes. I don't know, maybe everybody had more time back then.
I don't know if everybody had more time back then.
There was a bunch of interesting ads in here. One that popped out was an ad simply for lizard stone, and I was like, what the heck is a lizard stone? And I went to go look it up, and obviously the first thing that pops up is a bunch of lizards that have been carved out of stones. Oh. I don't think that's what they were selling, though. I think it was just like a green jasper is what lizard stone was or is. I don't think really a whole lot of people use that. It's kind of like a green, brown with little specks of white kind of jasper. But it's interesting because still to this day, like, we rebrand rocks. Yeah. Euperlites come to mind as a rebranded rock that I forget what it's the part that's fluorescing in it is sodalite, and then there's like another mineral that makes up the bulk of the rock. But it's rebranded, and there's so much of that in the world of rockhounding where things get rebranded and sold.
But then the problem is 40 years later, you're like, what were they talking about, lizard stone?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
if they were like green and brown jasper, you'd be like, I know what that is.
Yeah, you'd be like green and brown jasper from this claim, this canyon, or whatever. But when you just call it like a lizard stone,
maybe that was part of everyone. They wanted people to be like, I wonder what that is. I'll send for that.
I mean, the ad definitely didn't say.
Did it say it was jasper?
It didn't.
That's not a very good ad.
Yeah, no, it was. It was not. It was just sending away for some lizard stone. But it's interesting. Like, does that, kind of today? Speaking of the Euperlites, like most people, I think, get what a Euperlite is, or that's like in the consciousness of rockhounds, or whatever kind of more popular thing. I guess that gets lost over time. In 40 years, 50 years, are we still going to be like, oh, Euperlite? Like, maybe not.
I mean, with the example of Euperlite, it's kind of, isn't that like a made-up word that doesn't apply to anything else? Like, I think that one probably would stand the test of time, or at least you could research and find out what it is. But like, lizard stone is very vague. That could, I think I was trying to look up like blanket jasper when we were going to Utah, and I was like, there didn't seem to be any agreement on what that even meant.
Yeah.
When they're like
Good. That's a good point.
stuff like that where, I don't know, Uperlite is a very specific thing, but lizard stone, is that just where they're like, today it's this green jasper, tomorrow it's brown jasper, tomorrow, next day it's not even jasper, it's something else? Like, that's
It's all marketing.
Yeah.
It's marketing.
Had one ad I thought was interesting. It was like tired of plain cabs, and it was for composite cabs from Fabulap. And I assume that's, again, probably marketing. What, like, a composite cab is just like all the tiny pieces glued, or like probably like resin or glued together somehow.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what it's just the end, like the little pieces that they're like, what should we do with this? I know, stick them all together.
So I saw that, and I kind of did a little bit of digging.
Uh-huh.
I saw one thing that I think may have been it, and it was like basically Bakelite, which like Bakelite is like a, I don't know, it's like a form of like plastic, like you know.
Yeah. They just like mushed all the stuff together. They're like, it's even better than a real rock.
Yeah, it's a fake rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
Doesn't seem better.
It doesn't... Well, I mean, I guess if you're thinking from a durability standpoint, I feel like a lot of plastics and resins and stuff ultimately would probably be more durable than a stone. I mean...
Yeah. Definitely lose some of the charm of a cab when it's not a thing you cut out of a rock and then shaped and polished.
Yeah. There was an ad for a saw, which really caught my attention. And it was the Beacon Star 14-inch saw. And I just so happened to also have a 14-inch saw. And they were selling their saw for $444.50. And how much do you think that is when you adjust
like
for
$1,200?
So you adjust for the inflation. The saw today would be $2,375.38. So that's an increase of about 434%.
That's the official inflation.
Yeah, that's like the official inflation calculation. But it's interesting because if you look up what the cost of a current 14-inch saw is, like today you can order from Covington Engineering in Southern Idaho, Meridian, Idaho. A 14-inch saw is $2,795.
So it's close.
Yeah, so it's like $300 something under. So very, very. I thought that was very spot on. Like you're basically spending $2,300 on the old saw versus $2,800 today when everything's adjusted.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean how little things change. Like that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like I mean modern saws cost a lot. I mean, and saws a long time ago cost a lot.
There was one thing I saw an ad for where the cost was actually cheaper now than what they had in the ad. What do you think it was that they were advertising? What do you guess?
Rocks.
It was not rocks. It was an ad for the Mineral Literary Center, which was like a Book of the Month club. And when you signed up, you got a special deal on the book Treasures from the Earth, which was normally $15.95, but new members got it for $7.95. However, now you can get that book on eBay for like $5.
Wait, the Treasures of the Earth, like I have over on the bookshelf? That one?
I don't know. Do you have it?
I do. I didn't see that.
Treasures from the Earth.
I think I have that over on the bookshelf.
Does it have 25 color pictures and 100 black and white pages or something?
I don't know.
It's probably that book.
That's funny, yeah.
Yeah, that was your new member book. Cheap. And they would send you another book every month, but price on that book has gone down.
Yeah.
I mean, adjust for inflation, $7.95. That's
Yeah.
like $20.
Speaking of prices, there is an ad for sheets of mica,
Yeah.
which I saw, and I like that one. So
I saw it twice.
yeah,
I wonder if they.
there was a couple of ads that they did twice in here. I wonder if that's like, did they pay for that, or
Yeah,
was
I
that
don't
like
know.
we got space to fill? Who do we
Yeah.
like?
Yeah.
So these sheets of mica for sale, they were 8 square inches of mica sheet.
I was trying to figure I wonder what that even looked like a 4x2.
Yeah.
8 square inches.
So, and they're selling these sheets for $2, which is $10.69 in today's dollars.
It was a pack of 10, wasn't it? It wasn't one sheet.
Yeah, it was a pack. Sorry.
Okay.
And you can still to this day buy blocks of that from Texas. So the ad was from Texas, I believe. So somewhere out there, there's still,
big sheets of mica.
Yeah, you can buy blocks of mica, big blocks of it, and split the sheets out. And I kind of looked into what like people are kind of using them for. I know historically in stained glass they used them, and then also in the doors for wood stoves so that you could see the fire. And mica is highly fire resistant, so it got used for that. But now it just seems like highly decorative things like inlays, stuff where you want this like kind of like off silvery look in stuff. It's not really what I associate with like being a lapidary product so much as it's more like industry or like decor.
Can you cut it with precision?
I don't know.
Because it seems like all the mica we've seen, it's so thin and like it would just brittle.
I think a lot of this mica, when I've looked at blocks that you could buy today from Texas, imagine like a block that is several inches thick, and each of the sheets are like a 1/16 to an 1/8 inch thick. So like relatively thick. You're getting like 8 sheets in like an inch thick thing, and they seemed very splittable and very workable, but it's really not like a lapidary product that you would see today. Like most often, like you just don't see that. People aren't like posting videos or photos online, at least, of mica projects.
Yeah, I've never really seen any for sure. I saw in this one, things that you don't see much now was in the back. There was an ad for Christmas gifts, and it was like the thing that you would put your like stone or your cab into, so like the metal thing, and they had like a butterfly, and they had like a money clip, and it was like a $sign where you would like put your cab into it. It's like, who would have that?
I kind of want one now.
It's just like a $sign with a big stone in it. And you're like, oh, time to pay. Let me pull out my custom money clip.
Well, I remember seeing money clips as a kid, and every time I saw one, they were always like a brass money clip, and they always had something flashy on it like that, and it really like stuck out in my mind, and I didn't really think about it until right now, but like, it stuck out in my mind, and I was always like, oh, someday I'm gonna be rich, and I'm gonna have a money clip for all my money.
There's your next project, money clip.
I don't know if you can buy like a pre-made money clip that you can just like drop a stone into.
Yeah, I don't know.
I've looked at Kingsley North and some other things. I don't think their money clips are in fashion.
I don't know. They're probably like Etsy or something.
Yeah, maybe. You have to get a silversmith to make one.
Find an old one that somebody's getting rid of on eBay and just pop the stone out.
Yeah, could probably do that.
Probably not very many people just throw them away. You're not like keeping it.
Yeah,
it's quite dated gift ideas.
Yeah. I saw an ad that kind of popped out to me, and it was the Philadelphia Gem and Mineral Corp's Bicentennial Bonanza. And the tagline on it was, "It's your patriotic duty to take advantage of these once-in-a-bicentennial opportunities. Rare, unique opportunities for the discerning investor."
Oh.
And some of what I thought was a little interesting about it was the investing aspect of it. Like, I think between 1975 and today, now that like you can't call things investments, like you have to be like a financial advisor. Like I can't say like invest in my agates because that's like language that I think is like regulated. I looked into it a little bit, but so these unique opportunities for the discerning investor.
Yeah.
What do you think those unique opportunities were, Sarah?
Like rocks?
Yes, these were rocks. Do you have any guesses for what rocks were the rare opportunities?
I'm guessing they're not like a precious metal type of rock.
The rare, unique opportunities were citrine, amethyst, emeralds, coral. Yeah, you could be an investor in coral.
I saw a lot of mentions of coral in this.
Yeah.
Issue.
It's like back to the whole shells thing. Topaz, rubies, and sapphires. And it's a little bit like, I don't know if that's the investment. You're going to invest in some coral. You buy some coral and you put it aside, and then before you know it, you're sending your kids to college. You just show up with that box of coral, cash that investment out.
Yeah. It's your patriotic duty.
It's your patriotic duty to buy this coral.
Yes. When I look through the magazines, I always watch for anything that basically mentions where we are. And there's not really much. I mean, so far there's a lot of like trips that are like New Mexico. There's one later we'll talk about where it's Colorado. What that one like Mexico, like California. There's nothing much here yet, but there was one ad that said it had a list of a bunch of rocks that they had for sale, and it said serpentine from Washington. So I wonder if that was from around here, Northeast Washington.
I mean, it very, very likely could have been. I mean, out here for the listeners that don't know, in Northeast Washington, we have an area that's about like 100 miles squared called the Magnesite Belt. And within the Magnesite Belt, we have all kinds of really amazing serpentines that can be found. So usually when I see people mention the serpentine from here, it's usually material from out here, which is interesting. Yeah. I also try to keep my eyes peeled for the stuff that's kind of like we would have a connection to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also said soapstone from Washington in that ad, which I think that's more central Washington, like Cascades area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We don't have any soapstone.
Not that, yeah.
We haven't been that far on that side of the state. I also noticed the way there's a couple ads for shops in Washington, and when they said the address, instead of the state being like WA, it was WN. I mean, that was like the old postal abbreviation for Washington.
I have no idea.
Because I
that.
saw it in multiple ones. I mean, there's like some of them said like Oregon, like ORE. Some of them were like California, like Calif. But there was like Washington, WN. I
haven't heard that.
I mean, it must have been how they abbreviated things. I didn't look it up, but I probably should.
Yeah, we'll have to look it up for the next episode, and we can reapproach.
I also saw an ad for Rock and Gem magazine in the magazine. They had like a referral commission system for rock clubs.
Oh.
I haven't seen that ad before. I don't know if it was like a new thing they're trying out, or they realized like one person in the rock club gets the magazine and then they leave it at the club, and now you have one subscription and a club full of people reading it. So the ad said that your rock club, I don't know, just gets a commission for selling Rock and Gem magazine subscriptions, basically, which I thought was an interesting idea. I mean, I'd be curious how much they got. Couldn't have been much, but I wonder if that'll keep showing up, if that'll end up being a successful campaign for them.
I kind of probably breezed right past that ad. I didn't see their commissions ad.
Yeah. It was like, you can still enjoy it and your club can benefit too.
There's a couple of interesting columns. The glory hole, which is the editor's column, discussed.
Is it the editor's column? Let me see the magazine. I didn't notice before that it has, in the beginning, it has a list of the people's names and roles. I didn't notice that until now. Go ahead, you talk about it. I'll tell you anyway.
Should I keep this in here?
It's the senior editor. We were right all along. When we read the glory hole in the first one, we were like, this reads like an editor's column. I never noticed in the beginning that it has the people's names in it, and indeed, the person who writes the glory hole is the senior editor.
So, in the glory hole, they discussed how they go about finding interesting field trips for the magazine, and I thought it was neat because it's so much like exactly what we do for finding out places to go. Where, we're right before we record this, we're thinking about taking a trip and looking at maps, thinking about what's there, what's on the way, kind of the planning aspect, and then you go and like they kind of described it, probably wasn't the best trip for them. Like it was a little bit of a bust, and
they said they ran into, they're like, a mine, and then they went out and it was an active mine, so they couldn't go to it, and then like there's just private property everywhere.
Yeah, we've been there and done that. Yeah, it was just kind of a refreshing take because sometimes I think about with like YouTube and different social medias, like you're really only seeing the best of the best, and it's kind of hard to even show what they were discussing right there, where you like go out and
you drive a bunch and then you hit a private road sign and you're like, well, that was the road we would need to go down, so turn around.
I think the takeaway from it is have a plan B, C, and D for all outings that are more than like an hour away from your house, because you never know when like it's just gonna take a turn. So
I thought the glory hole, they usually mention like gold prices and stuff, and they mentioned it in this one, and they had a thing at the end. They said there had been a situation in New York where somebody had took people hostage and they wanted to they were robbing a bank, and one of their demands was $10 million in gold, and they're like, that's ridiculous, because with the price of gold, how it was 577 pounds per $1 million. So they're like, what were they going to do with their 5,700 pound thing of gold? And they're like, they're going to bring 7 trucks to like truck it away or something? And,
no, let's see, how many pounds?
5,000 or 577 per million, and he wanted 10 million. So it's almost 6,000 pounds.
You have to have a really durable dually pickup.
Did that exist in 1975?
Yeah. Oh, trucks back then were better. They're better. We've gone downhill.
Well, how did you look it up? How many pounds of gold is 10 million or $1 million now?
I didn't.
Well, it was 577 pounds per $1 million in 1975. How many pounds do you think it was at for now? How many pounds per $1 million? If you want $1 million of gold, how many pounds of gold are you getting?
Well, the price of gold has gone up.
It has.
So trying to do this math in my head. No, just tell me.
33 pounds.
Yeah.
33. So now if you wanted $10 million in gold, you'd only be paying 330 pounds, which is still pretty heavy. Still probably not a good demand when you're robbing a bank and keep having people hostage.
Yeah.
Also, I don't think a bank would ever have $10 million in gold.
We probably shouldn't give bank robbing advice out, but just ask for Bitcoin, everyone. Just be like, I want some Bitcoins transferred to my wallet.
Yeah.
That's how you get away with that.
Don't ask for gold. Too weak. Also in the glory hole, I don't know if this was a typo, but I noticed, when they use words in ways that I don't expect. They said, he was like, oh, there's some descriptions of books, new books that got published, and it was like, here's the info, but it said, we'll give you the scam on them.
Yeah, I don't.
And I looked it up and I was like, there's no other definition for the word scam, but I was like, what other word could that, I don't know if it was a typo or that was like a slang use of the word scam in 1975.
I feel like there's a fair number of typos. You're just like giving them a pass. I mean, I don't know, like.
What could that have been a typo of? Most of the typos, you're like, okay, there's not a space or some letters got flipped. What is scam?
I have no idea.
I didn't particularly find the other columns very interesting, so you'll have to talk about them.
Well, the one that really came to the front of my mind when I read it, for having a fair amount of things to talk about, was their shop talk. Shop talk, they discussed maintaining a clean saw. So like, your lapidary saws. And it took me a little bit, I'm reading through it, and I was like, well, wait, everything they're talking about is oil saw. They never said in there at any point that it was about cleaning your oil saw. And then towards the end, they talked about the filtering of your oil to maintain it being really clean. And I was like, oh, okay, they're obviously not filtering water, they're filtering their oil. But I thought it was kind of a good article. I mean, it's just kind of like the basics of like wiping everything out and like cleaning everything. I do like the idea of filtering your oil, which isn't something that I really see anybody ever talking about. Like when you change the oil out of your lapidary saw, you can basically use paper grocery bags as the filter to filter out all of the sediment that's built up, and then you can reuse a large portion of your oil. So you're just using imagine like using that paper bag as like a coffee filter, and it drips through and into another bucket below. It's interesting that they were talking about it in the 70s, and here to this day, I talk to people that are like, whoa, Jared, that's a great idea. Did you come up with that? I'm like, no, I didn't come up with that. But yeah, it's just kind of a pretty basic column about cleaning stuff.
I felt like there was a number of articles that kind of like that one where you got to the end and you're like, oh, it's an oil saw. They didn't, like, there's a number of things where they just didn't say things at the beginning that were important. Did you have any other thing about columns you wanted to mention?
I didn't, but we talked about the ads at the beginning. Yeah. But there was the Rockhound Christmas article, loosely calling this an article because it was ads for things under $100. It was a lot, but it was like...
It was a gift guide for the Rockhound in your life, like what to buy them.
Yeah, and I would imagine, so like, it was kind of like an article, but it was also just like promoting advertisers that they have for the most part. And I mean, I get it, like the idea is that you're the Rockhound and you're getting this magazine, and then like your wife or husband can flip through the gift guide and buy the last minute thing, but a lot of it wasn't very conducive to that. Like, I don't know. I thought it was...
Yeah, when they say gift ideas, I think of like things I could give as a gift, like using the rocks and gems, not things to buy someone.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of the issues have You go to this like columns, and then it goes straight to an article that reads like an ad. Like
Yeah.
that other one for like, I can't remember what it was, but they're like, oh, the instruction booklet has amazing pictures. Here they are. And like, you didn't even do it yourself. You just took the pictures from the instructions. Like, that's not an article. I don't know. Maybe that's, yeah. How much did you have to pay to get your item in the gift guide?
Well, so that's still a thing today where advertisers will reach out and try to do underhanded marketing.
True.
And it's feels like when you see it nowadays that it's kind of like a modern thing, but clearly it wasn't. Like back in the 70s, they were looking for sly ways to hawk their product.
It's interesting that in all the articles, they kind of seem like ads. Most of them are for a very specific thing, or then they're not like, hey, here's something you can make out of turquoise. By the way, here's a great source for turquoise. They're like, oh, do you want to like dip things in wax and make this very specific thing? Here's how to do it and where to buy the machine. They're clearly the money is in the equipment and not the rock. I guess that's what I think.
You think that generally?
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. Like we go back in time, go back to the gold rush, right?
Yeah.
Like the money wasn't in the gold, the money was in owning a saloon. The money is in the selling of tools, not in the actual mining of gold.
I don't know. I mean,
and similarly, it's like how many rocks do you have to find to equal the price of a saw? Right? Like realistically, like there's a lot of money in selling product to people.
Would you say there's more ads for equipment or for rock?
The ads for equipment are big,
and
sometimes they're colorful.
They're bigger.
Like, it might be a quarter page, half page, full page. And there's been some full page
I noticed
ads.
This one had a full page. One of the rare color printed pages was an ad with minimal color. I was like, that was a waste of the color printing and their advertising dollars, but sure.
Whereas the rock ads are usually like in 1 inch by 2 inch, like little block, and they're never color.
So which just further supports that the money's in the equipment and not in the rock.
Yeah. I mean,
I guess maybe some of the articles could be sort of like ads for stuff like the article about the sapphires in Montana. I mean, maybe that was an ad for the sapphire mine.
Yeah, maybe
the Guffey sapphire mine.
Yeah, so there was a field trip article going to Guffey's sapphire mine in Montana, western Montana, and just kind of set the stage a little bit. Western Montana has a whole bunch of sapphires all over it, and there's a number of feed eggs back then and still to this day where you can go out and dig for sapphires, kind of like sluice or whatever for sapphires, and that's a thing. The article mentioned that one of the largest stones that they found on the site in 1974 was a 22.5 carat sapphire, a rough one. And I thought that's big as far as a sapphire goes. Like a lot of the sapphires that were come out of there back then and still to this day they're tiny. They're like your little fingernail, like little tiny thing. And then if you were to heat treat it and get the color that you want, and then facet it, obviously it's going to be even smaller. They're pretty small little stones.
Is a carat a gram?
No, carat's a unit. That's the whole thing.
How big is 22 carats?
That's a good question. I mean, it depends, but.
What is a carat a unit of?
It's a unit of weight.
Oh. Is it more or less than a gram?
I don't know. I don't know the carat to gram ratio here. But to give you kind of an idea of the value of a 22.5 carat sapphire, I was able to find one today that was a 22.5 carat bicolored blue sapphire that's been cut and put in a ring, and that was $12,000. So, significant. Like finding something of that size was kind of like a big payday for whoever was out there visiting. I wanted to look up what that location, the Guffey's location. I had a hard time trying to find it.
Well, they said they were on the banks of a lake. I'm pretty sure it's the Spokane Bar.
Oh, is that what the?
Yeah,
okay.
I mean it's on the same. The article has directions at the end, like turn down this road and then turn down this road, and those were not the roads that I saw going to the Spokane Bar.
That's what I did.
But it's a sapphire mine on the banks of a lake. I don't know. Is there a lot of sapphire mines on that lake?
I don't know.
I assume it's the Spokane Bar.
So the Spokane Bar is a place that you could visit today.
Yeah. Oh, I should have looked up what they charged. I thought they had an interesting pricing scheme for the Guffey sapphire mine. It was $6 a day, which is kind of a lot. No charge for under 16, which I thought was kind of a high, age for no charge. I mean, a 15-year-old can do some pretty good work.
Some of the fee mines that we've been to, they say under 12.
Yeah, under 12. I would say makes sense, but I thought 16 was very generous.
If you're under 12, you're probably just hindering your parent.
Yeah.
They're digging.
And there was no charge for your spouse who would assist in the screening. So basically you're paying to dig, and they're like anyone else. If you're not digging, they don't care. But I thought that was an interesting way to describe it. Like, why not just say $6 a family?
Yeah. There was a photo in that ad, and we'll probably be touching on this again in the article. So you got me thinking that the articles are really ads. On their field trip, they took a photo of a woman sorting gravels for sapphires, and she was sitting at a picnic table next to the lake, and she had a hard hat on.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
What? Sure, yeah. There's literally no possibility of something falling on you there. But yeah, no, had a hard hat on because she's sapphire mining.
She's mining. If you're a miner, you have to have a hard hat. How else will people know you're hard rock mining?
You're digging in an alluvial gravel flow that was turned up with a bulldozer.
Maybe she wanted the full mine experience. So she's like, I'm bringing my hard hat.
Yeah, I mean I guess sure. That's like going to a national park and you get a junior ranger badge. It's actually just a sticker.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm a ranger.
There was one other article similarly about mines. I guess it's not about digging in mine tailings.
Are you talking about the steep dump digging? Yeah.
Is a steep dump a thing?
They
didn't say what that meant. I mean, I inferred from the picture in the description where they talk. So they're going into mine tailings that are a very steep pile, and he describes step by step. I go up, this is what the weather conditions should be. We go up this far, and you see this the big rocks, and then this gets washed down, and we dig this straight into it, and we have a little safety jump, and we go this many feet before it collapses. But what is a steep dump?
We don't steep dump anymore because they're so dangerous. And I don't think it was really a thing that we did out in the western United States. A lot of steep dumping happened on the East Coast. And in the article, they are... So, like Sarah was saying, they describe how they dig through these steep dumps. And they were at a pegmatite operation in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. So, it's a pegmatite mine, and what they were going for was beryl crystals. Beryls and pegmatites go hand in hand. So imagine like a conveyor belt that's really high up in the air, and it's dumping, and it's building this cone of material on the ground. And as it gets taller and taller and taller, eventually it won't support itself anymore and it sloughs off. One of the reasons we don't steep dump anymore is because workers kept dying. Pretty much that. So in the article, they talk about how, they don't go while it's raining, they go after it's raining, so that like all the sand and stuff is kind of compressed some by that. And they try to like have their way of logically being safe about it, which sure, I'm sure, they said that they've been doing it for 6 years and they haven't died.
But they're like, they dig a flat, they make a flat space, and then one goes on either side of the flat space, and then inevitably where you're digging starts to collapse and you jump onto the flat space, which seems dangerous.
Yeah, being buried alive doesn't sound worth it, but they were getting a lot of beryl crystals. They were getting up to 20 pounds of beryl each day.
Yeah, it said they found some that they would like stop in at a rock shop after they were done, and they're like, oh, some of the stuff we found paid for the trip, which doesn't actually seem like that much money, unless they're like flying across the country. I mean, to be like, this crystal we found paid for the trip, like, how can you compete with everybody now who's like, my $500,000 crystals? Like, you're like, nobody's like making a video where they're like, I found a crystal and it paid for my trip.
Yeah,
nobody does that.
Well, yeah.
But still, that's cool to find one thing that pays for the trip and more.
Yeah, I mean, you could, in theory, do that with things, I guess. Like if you were finding really good stuff and stop at a rock shop and they like bought.
Yeah.
A lot of rock shops, they don't buy like that. Like vast majority of them, they either have their own claims and they're getting their material that way, or they're just like buying like super cheap wholesale rock. They're not just buying stuff like a pawn shop. But yeah, I mean.
So a steep dump is something that people would have known back then?
I don't think we steep dump anywhere anymore.
But
yeah,
there was a reason that they didn't need to describe it in the article, because everyone knows what a steep dump is.
Man, that's hard for me to try to
I
like.
Guess, yeah, that's hard to say, but I was just like, what? I don't know. It was just one of the many articles where I was like, I feel like they're not writing this for somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I think they should have done a little bit of explanation.
More a quote from that article that I thought was funny, when they were like, oh, once they're like done, their like their thing collapses, they walk around and pick up stuff on the surface, and it said we wander around and pick up from the surface just like Sunday afternoon rockhounds think it should be. I thought it was like a dig at casual rockhounds to be like, yeah, you guys are Sunday afternoon rockhounds. Like, we're risking our life on this steep dump.
Yeah, it was definitely.
I thought it was funny. I've never heard anybody be like, you're a Sunday afternoon rockhound.
They were a little like boastful. They were a little like, we're hardcore.
None of the other articles, I mean, the one at about the sapphire mine, did they even mention what they found?
No.
Yeah, most of them don't say what they found. They're just like, here's what you could find. Whereas, yeah, that article, they're like, we found this giant crystal and this big one and 20 pounds. And
if those guys were doing that today, they would definitely be on Facebook.
Yes.
There's my dig. Since we are having our Christmas issue right now, on the cover, the Christmas poinsettias.
Rockhound poinsettia. They call it, it says Rockhound poinsettias on the cover.
Now, you, the listener, when you hear Rockhound poinsettia, what comes to mind? When I hear Rockhound poinsettia, I think about poinsettias made of rocks. I think one could draw that conclusion.
They were not made of rocks, as the article instructed.
They definitely were not. Do you want to explain what these poinsettias are? Well, first off, a poinsettia is that's the Christmas flower that you always see. It's like the red leafed, red flowered
green plant, and then some of the things turn red, and it's like a flower that you have around Christmas.
Yeah.
Yes, poinsettia. And the article instructed you make a poinsettia. The leaves and the red and the green part of the plant are fish scales, garfish scales.
Apparently, I don't know my fish very well, because when they said gar scales, I was like,
yeah.
They didn't say fish.
Oh.
They said gar scales.
Gar scales.
And I was like, wait, gar scales? What is that? And I searched it out. I'm like, oh, a gar is a giant fish.
Yeah, I thought gar they're a pretty interesting fish. When I looked it up, I mean, they're like, oh, you can buy gar scales from your local like rock shop.
No. I mean, I don't believe that. Can you imagine going to a rock shop today and you're like, let's see here. I'm gonna take some amethyst and I'm gonna take. Oh, that's some really nice petrified wood that you have there. Oh, a bin of fish scales. I don't see that happening.
I don't know. But I guess they're white, and you color them green and red.
Yeah.
And then in the middle, I forget what there was some kind of gem that they put in the middle.
Yeah,
and that was the rock part. That was it. It was like the little yellow parts in the middle of the flower. They said it was like something special, and they're like, oh, it's just like a dyed something. It's not even like a natural yellow but that was it. And you just glue things down, and Rockhound poinsettia.
No, that's a terrible idea. Nobody wants your fish scale arts and crafts.
The author of that was Dixie Douglas, who wrote the one last issue about the seashell roses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I read that, I was like, okay, here we go. Like, turn the page looking for the ad where she says, like, gar scales available from Dixie's rock shop, but there wasn't any. So I don't doubt that she sold them at her rock shop, but there's no rock. What's a rockhound poinsettia? That was not accurate.
That was a letdown.
But the garfish are pretty interesting. They can breathe air.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. It says they can use their swim bladder as lungs, and most of them periodically surface to take a gulp of air.
Well, that's not what I was expecting.
It also said Native Americans use gar scales as arrowheads. I mean, that seems more rockhound related than anything else.
Sure, yeah. I mean, if you're like, go to your local rock shop, pick up some fish scales and make arrowheads, I'd be like, okay, we could do that. That could be a project. It's a little bit of a bummer. I think they could have taken that idea a totally different route. Like, I've seen some people that have carved flowers.
Yeah.
Like done like the stem and the leaves and flowers with like the stamens and all of that, like done beautiful stone carvings of those. And I was like, oh, like that would be much better. And maybe they even if it was a little bit of an advert.
Yeah, even if it was more of an advertising as article thing, that would have been better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she was like, where can you use these? You can use them everywhere. Like, put them in your Christmas cards when you mail them. Put them in a frame. Put them with your gift. Put them here. Put them here. I'm like, can you imagine somebody giving that to you? And you're like, oh, it's a point, like, what did you make that out of? And they're like, gar scales. And you're like, wait, what's a gar?
I tried to find some flowers that were made out of gar scales, and I couldn't find anything online.
Yeah, it's
Apparently,
like,
that's could be a niche for anybody listening. You could get some, go to your local rock shop, get some gar scales, and start putting those things on Etsy. You have no competition. I kind of like the articles that have less fish scales and more minerals, being that this is rock and gem. Minerals in depth, crystalline gold. I thought was an excellent article. I mean, they discuss the crystal form of gold, which fetches like a really much higher price above and beyond gold. But they kind of just talked about like some of the different types of gold. I like that you could basically know nothing about gold, and they really kind of laid it out in a very easy to understand fashion, unlike some of the other things in rock and gem at this time. But I mean, the basics of it is most people think of gold. They think of like a place or gold, like, you know, in the streams, like nuggets, flakes, things like that. Crystalline gold, you're going to find it with quartz and granite. And it's just that. It's the crystal form of it, you know? And there can be some very, very pretty specimens. So, as of April 26, 2022, the spot price of gold was $1,913. I found what?
And I checked it. It was down. Did you check that yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah, it went like down $30.
Well.
But go ahead. Keep going.
Okay. We're going with my figure here before spot dropped. Okay, so gold spot price, that's like what's set by the stock market. So things obviously go for above that.
Sure.
I found a gold crystal for sale, which was 8.6 grams, which was from Montana. And in the article, a lot of what they talked about was crystal gold from Montana, or they mentioned it. They mentioned that Montana is a place that you can get crystal gold. So I found a gold crystal that was for sale, 8.6 grams, 8.6 grams of spot gold, like just, you know, a little nugget or whatever, not even a nugget, just like flakes of gold, would be $526. This was being sold for $716, which was $190 over spot, because you're not buying something related to the gold price, you're buying a specimen.
It's not as much as I thought you were going to say. It's not that much over spot price.
Yeah, 190.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Where was it, on eBay?
No, there's a dealer, and I'm a little aware of this person. I don't want to plug his website here, but he sells gold, but like high end, like rare nuggets. Like basically, as you get bigger and bigger in the world of gold, I mean, it's more and more rare, so they command a premium over, like, you know, processed or spot or whatever, because they have more of a story to tell. So yeah, I thought it was just kind of interesting. Like, you don't usually hear about crystal gold anymore. I mean, I think for most rockhounds, gold is not like a thing. There's not the same kind of crossover, right? Like, you know, the world of gold prospecting is its own thing, and the world of rockhounding is its own thing. And you don't see many people rockhounding for gold. And you don't see many gold prospectors being like, I'm going to go dig thunder eggs or something. Like, there's just...
I mean, if you could rockhound for a piece of gold, people would do that, but the vast majority of gold you're going to get, you're like panning and doing all these tricks so it doesn't float away. Like, it's not a rockhound activity. I mean, nobody's going to the river and panning for garnet sand, because what are you going to do? Like, nobody's interested in sand.
Yeah, but that makes such a great thumbnail where you can be like 500 billion garnets
Maybe you should
worth
do that.
$100 billion. I found America's GDP in garnets. I'm going to be trading. I'm going to go find so many garnets that I'm just going to take them down to California. I'm going to buy Facebook. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I thought that was just kind of a neat, like, little, like, in-depth thing into the world of crystalline gold.
A lot of the projects are not what I would, are very dated and or just weird, like the poinsettias. But they had one where they made it was a lost wax necklace, and they made it out of tree buds. So like I cut a branch where the tree was budding, but before the leaves came out, and then they did the lost wax process, and I thought it looked interesting, but I didn't understand it wasn't a tutorial, it was just showing somebody doing something, but I still didn't. I felt like they skipped a bunch of steps because they're like, okay, you like cut the tree branch, you stick it, they're like making out of silver.
They were lost wax casting twigs. Twigs, like a budding twig.
Yeah.
And they were doing it out of silver so that you could have little twigs made out of silver hanging from a necklace. And that was
I thought it was a cool idea, but I didn't get how I felt like they skipped their, like, make like the cast of the twigs, but then they're like, you did like a burnout of the twigs. How would you do that?
I'm still a little hazy on the whole lost wax casting process. I mean, they're talking about it in like every issue so far. Like,
yeah, they really
I don't know anybody that's doing lost wax anything, so I don't really have a whole lot to draw upon.
It was hard to understand because I've never seen it or heard of anyone doing or seen anyone do it, seen the process, but it was a cool idea. I like the little tree twigs.
One of the projects that I thought was kind of neat, their little like project articles, was the zip up setting.
Yeah, I thought that was surprisingly good too.
Yeah, it's take an old zipper and use the metal teeth as the setting for like a cab or whatever, and you kind of have that, like, I don't know,
like the frame around the
cab.
It's like
the setting for a stone, but you're using an old zipper. I mean, that was pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah, it actually looked really good.
Yeah, I thought out of all the weird projects, like reusing an old zipper, I thought that was kind of a neat one.
Yeah.
Not a project, but I guess it was a little article. When is a rockhound not a rockhound? I thought that was actually a very interesting small article.
I didn't really follow it. I didn't really understand what they were getting at. Were they like, because you summarize it.
So a lot of it was about the title that you have and why people have it, self-titles. When are you a rockhound? When are you a miner? When are you a lapidary artist? And kind of how people wear these titles as like a little bit of a badge almost, like, oh, you're not a real rockhound if you're not like going out all the time. And when I read it, I was like, yeah, I mean, I see so much of that today. Like social media, Facebook, people being like, somehow I'm better than thou. Like this kind of high and mighty, like looking down your nose, like I'm a miner because I have this material. Like I'm a real rockhound. I climb to the highest peaks, go to the ends of the earth for my rocks. And like, you're not a rockhound because you only go out on Labor Day weekend. Like, and it was a little bit like kind of
Yeah.
Been like, well, it's like more nuanced. It's, when are you what, like
Mhm.
how often do you have to go rockhounding to be called a rockhound?
Yeah.
Like, does it even matter? I don't think it really matters. I mean, that kind of mentality, that attitude, I think is just like a flawed way of looking at yourself and looking at others and trying to feel like I'm somehow better. I don't know.
Yeah. Something a little different than a trip or a project. I thought there was more articles in this issue that were just kind of general information and not a trip or a project or a product.
Yeah. Well, we do have one article left that we have to talk about, and that's the $1 Million Rockhound Trail. When I heard the $1 Million Rockhound Trail, I was thinking it was going to be more in reference to like some type of high valued items they were finding.
Yes, the rocks would be have a high value because it's $1 Million Rockhound Trail.
And what it's actually referring to is Route 550 in southwest Colorado was paved over gold-bearing rocks. So if you're to like take the rocks from under the road, they'd be worth $1 million.
Yeah, it said that's called the $1 Million Highway.
Yeah, I'm like that.
And so the $1 Million Rockhound Trail is just driving down the $1 Million Highway. So I mean,
I know that now, but the way it was framed was slightly misleading.
I didn't. Well, this article was by Xanthus Carson, who's written a couple articles before. So it was in his same style where he doesn't really talk about what he finds, and he's not like, oh, we did this crazy thing and I got buckets full. He's just like, go here and then go here and then go here and camp here. So it's driving down Route 550, but you start at Route 160, but it's southwest Colorado and you drive north on the road. And there's mines everywhere.
And what we talked about earlier at the Sapphire Mine, where there was a woman sitting there wearing a hard hat. In here, there's a photo of a guy at like a gentle rock knoll with a hard hat on. And not just like, I mean, I know it's the 70s, but it's like an aluminum like a hard hat like you'd have in logging, like and still today, like lumberjacks, people felling trees commercially will wear an aluminum hard hat as like their hard hat. And this guy has on an aluminum hard hat. I'm like, what are you doing? You're out there in Colorado sun? You're like baking your head in an aluminum bucket? But there's no chance anything's going to fall on him there.
Maybe just out of the view of the photo,
there's just rocks looming above him, waiting to get him.
A steep hill, what was it called? A steep dump.
Yeah. I mean, I think the problem with the steep dump is you get buried alive. I don't know if a hard hat's going to help you there. But yeah, so I'm going to butcher the name of it, but it goes from Gem Village to Ouray.
I don't know.
Ouray, Colorado is their route. The Gem Village. So Gem Village was a town 2 miles west of Bayfield, and they said it was like made up of rockhounds.
Yeah, they're like, there's rock shops. I mean, it's called Gem Village.
Like people moved there for this place, I guess. Like it was like, they described it in kind of a weird fashion, like this town of rock shops and lapidary artists, and it was like a place to go and just like be around other rockhounds and like live there. And I looked it up today, and there's nothing rock related there anymore.
Does it exist? Did you find it?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, I found where theoretically it would be on a map, but like Google Maps doesn't say like Gem Village.
No, I didn't. It's not called Gem Village.
The only thing I could find was like a bar that said in their address that they were in Gem Village, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise it was like there's like a U-Haul dealer, like a self-storage, like in the little place where I think Gem Village was.
Yeah, Gem Village is not made up of rockhounds anymore.
Nothing, not one, unless they run a U-Haul now.
Well, so, they did say a little bit of the stuff that they were finding, but they weren't like, we found so much of it or anything.
Pretty typical mine.
Yeah, they were finding, so
mine dumps.
They were driving this route and hitting a bunch of different spots. And they were collecting quartz, calcite, garnets. They searched dump piles for copper and silver ores, fluorite, rhodochrosite, like different the accessory minerals that would be in like gold and copper mines, which even some like big quartz. They said they got some big quartz crystals, which that was good.
Yeah.
But that was their $1 million rockhound trail.
I didn't find it as interesting as the previous articles that he had. I don't know, maybe just because I don't think of hitting up a bunch of mine tailings as super intriguing rockhounding destination.
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly had some good mine tailings finds.
Yeah. I mean, they also said it was really pretty, and when I was looking for Gem Village, there's like a lot of waterfalls and like forested area. I'm sure it's a very pretty hot $1 million trail. There was one more article, and it was about milepost markers.
Yeah.
I was like, have you ever followed bad or unclear directions? There's a solution. Milepost markers. Here's what they look like. Here's what they tell you. Use them. That was the article.
Yes. I felt like that was a little bit of a filler article.
But also, that's still a problem today. People need to read that article now and be like, milepost markers. Use them. Don't be like, yeah, there's a tree here. Turn at the tree. And you're like, tree when?
Pet peeve. I could go off. This could be, we could have the rant version of this. Like, the inability to give proper directions makes me insane. When I read stuff and people still, to this day, like modern publications, they're not using GPS. They're not even using like the odometer on your vehicle. They're like, go down about 3 miles. Take a left after the big tree. I'm like, get out of here with that. Like, what year do you think this is? Go down by the big tree. What if the big tree's not there anymore? What if there's multiple big trees? About 3 miles? How about you? No, that's garbage.
Yeah, especially because there's just so much that get repeated without confirming, and then you're like, when was this accurate? 20 years ago? 30 years ago? 2 years ago? Like, you don't know. And yeah, even back then they were like, hey everybody, do better with your directions. It sucks to go follow someone's directions and get lost and get frustrated and go on all these side roads because you're lost. Like, use the mile markers. They're literally everywhere. Use them.
I'm going to keep going here for a second. Lewis and Clark, right? Their map was like accurate within like a mile or something, right? Nowadays, I look at old hand-drawn rockhounding maps and look at modern day satellite photos and modern day maps, and I'm like, what were they even doing? Did they have any idea of what they were actually drawing? Because like there's a point of reference that I can match up, and then the roads just wildly diverge from each other, where like they had to have been, I don't know what they were thinking. They just had zero ability to understand direction, navigating, map drawing, anything. They were just like winging it, like with their napkin, like.
Well, even if that article was filler, it's still relevant today. So it's a lesson that nobody has learned.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I'll start sharing that article places.
Although the mile markers seem much more complicated than at least what we have here in this Washington, Idaho, Oregon. They were in California.
Mm-hmm.
It had like, it wasn't just a mile, it was like 36.0, and then it had like the street name or the county name and other information, which ours just had a number.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that about does it for this issue in this episode of the Previously Rockhounding podcast. In the next episode, we're going to be reading Rock and Gems magazine from February 1976. How to make a bicentennial pendant, because it's bicentennial time. Facets of history, birthstones, amethyst, miniatures from Walker Valley. And yeah, that's a Washington one. Gifts from your Tumblr, because all of the stuff coming out of your Tumblr is a gift. And agates, field trips, and how-tos. Next time.
Walker Valley miniatures? Miniatures from Walker Valley.
We'll find out next time. All right, thanks everybody.